welcome to episode 28 of Mo Money, the investing show for millennials by a millennial, where our goal is to educate, entertain, and empower a new generation of investors. I am, of course, the host with the most, MC Mo. We are back with another week and another topic. This week, we're going to be talking about something we are all very familiar with: debt. Now, the word strikes fear into many millennials. They just envision a mountain of debt and a college degree that really ain't getting you shit. But luckily, we're not talking about your debt, my debt, or anyone else's debt. We're talking about the national debt, the United States national debt, to be exact, which now stands at about $19.5 trillion, which may seem like a lot of money, but I assure you that you're absolutely right. That is a shitload of money. It would take like 100 Bill Gates and Warren Buffetts just to come anywhere near paying that off. But with that said, it's not the worst thing in the world right now. But for our generation, thanks to our shitbag elders, it could be pretty damn bad. So let's break down the USA's national debt. So first of all, let's start with what debt is. So people like you and I have debt because we pay for things that we don't have the money at the moment. So you get a loan for a car for like $20,000, now you're $20,000 in debt, which seems like a shitty idea because that's a lot of money. Why would you do that? Well, that car helps you to get your new job, which pays you enough to afford the payments and interest. The $20,000 is not a big worry in that respect because you have the income to pay for it eventually. The same goes for the government. The government creates a budget each year and includes all the shit that they want to spend money on: Medicare, Social Security, wars, welfare, etc. But where does the government get money? Taxes, of course, okay? At the end of the day, though, that's fine. The government provides services to the people. People pay their taxes, and the government includes in their budget enough money to pay back the existing debt and their interest, just like you and I do on a new car. The only problem is sometimes us lazy Americans, we're not making enough for our overlord government's big spending. Think of us like the ants in A Bug's Life. And the government, the IRS, and everyone is like our grasshoppers. Those grasshoppers ain't really fucking happy when you don't have enough seats for them. So what do our grasshopper overlords do when their tax-paying ants don't meet revenue for their budget? They just borrow money from other grasshoppers to pay for the over-expenses. Over-expenses is called a deficit. You'll often hear about deficit spending. That's when the government is spending money that it does not have to pay for things we probably don't even need, like more wars and shit. But running a deficit and creating debt is not always a bad thing. Alexander Hamilton, the first Treasury Secretary, said a national debt, if not excessive, will be to us a national blessing. A debt means that you're investing in things to help the country. You cannot expect the government to wait until we have enough money in the bank to start spending on things like,
and hey, we're going to completely cut spending on everything until we pay off this 19 trillion, and we've saved up at least 1 trillion. That won't collapse the economy, and I'm sure you guys will still have the money to pay for taxes.
False. It would collapse the economy, so that's why we have debt. So yes, we have debt, but how the fuck did it get to $19 trillion? Let's go back to the beginning of the millennial generation, the early 1980s. The national debt was at about $1 trillion. Well, the reason is simple. Government spent more money than they had. The Reagan years saw a large increase in the national debt. The last years of Clinton's presidency saw the first budget surpluses, meaning we brought in more tax revenue than we were spending on federal programs. First time that happened in 40 years. Bush's presidency saw a rocked economy at the start. He had to increase spending, then he cut taxes, and he took us to war, so spending went up and revenue went down. Obama comes into office in the middle of an economic crisis. They were forced to run large deficits in order to make up for the fact they were hardly bringing in any revenue because people didn't have fucking jobs. He increased largely the military spending, but he did lower the deficits that we were running on the budget, but we never came close to a surplus though. So what is our debt? Like, what type of shit are we spending our money on? Well, 60% of it is spent on Social Security, unemployment, and Medicare costs. And as the baby boomer generation who feel it's their entitled right to just fucking live forever and just refuse to die, that is going to be a large part of the budget. I'm sure people wish we could just kill all the old people and the sick people and the poor people and we'd be all set. Like, hey guys, what the fuck? Take one for the team. We're bringing on water here, okay? Anyways, that part of the budget is called the mandatory side. Like your rent and utilities, you gotta pay for that shit, no questions asked. Then we got the discretionary side, which is where the fighting in Congress for money begins. The next largest part of the budget, coming in at around 15%, is the military budget, followed by our interest on the debt, which is currently around 6%. So even though our debt is large, at this point, it's manageable. It's only 6% of our budget. We don't want our interest on debt growing to be 25, 50, 75% of our budget. That means things got way out of hand. The other roughly 20% of the budget is divided between things like veteran benefits, food and agriculture, education, transportation, science, housing, and other insignificant significant things, at least according to how they're budgeted, would make you think that. So who owns our debt? China, right? Wrong! God, Karen, you're so stupid! Contrary to what you hear on TV, the largest holder of USA's debt is the USA itself. Trust funds like Medicare and Social Security are the largest purchasers of the US government's debts, followed by institutions and average Americans like ourselves. In total, we make up around 55% of the holders of America's debt. The next largest holder at 8% is China, followed by Japan at around 6%, and the rest is owned by many other foreign nations. As you can see, China does not own the United States. They cannot ask for immediate payment on the debt that they own. They cannot simply roll up on the USA on horseback like some fucking cowboys and demand all the money in Fort Knox, because they'll get an AR-15 in their face and Toby Keith's boot up all of their asses. As long as we pay them the money when it comes due, they'll be happy. But if China or Japan or Germany does not receive the money for the bonds that they hold when the bonds expire, then we may have a problem. Again, China cannot just come in and just start claiming our land and our assets, but they'll probably never loan to us again. Nor will other countries. And if they do, it'd be at much higher interest rates. We'll be like fucking Puerto Rico or Argentina. Think of it like if Meek Mill asked you for $1 million, you think he's gonna repay you? Shit no! He's gonna run out, buy a rolling, then buy some studio time to fucking brag about that shit. If you loan Jay-Z $1 million, not only is he going to repay you, he might give you 30% in some lucrative business he used the seed money for. Is that clear? You have to show you're a producer before people will start lending you money. So what are the other effects of having a high national debt? Higher costs of living and lower standards of living. The more debt a country has, the higher interest rates, because the more debt makes a country a riskier investment. So lenders demand higher interest rate from borrowers, and when interest rates are high, they're high across the board. The negative effect is generational inequality. Our parents and grandparents were able to enjoy great government programs and economic prosperity at the expense of deficit spending and kicking the can down the road. And now it's landed at our generation's feet, and that small can has turned into a big fucking boulder, and that shit ain't moving. Like I said, some deficit spending is acceptable. You don't always have the money to buy the things that you need right now, but if you do it continuously, you're only adding more and more debt to the already existing huge number, and that larger number grows and grows. So grows the amount of interest that we must pay on the debt, and the larger that number grows, the smaller the amount of available capital for other things becomes, like education, public works, economic growth, etc. The third and probably the most major negative effect is that the higher the debt, the less ability the government will have responding to a new crisis. Obama stepped in with that $700 billion stimulus package, which arguably helped save the USA from utter ruin. And contrary to popular belief, the economy is not back and firing on all cylinders. So can we pay back our debt? The answer is joyously no! That's nearly impossible. Donald Trump says he can pay back $19 trillion in 8 years. Donald Trump is also a lying piece of shit that can suck my fucking cock. $19 trillion is a lot of money, and we should focus a lot on paying that down by a great amount. But we shouldn't worry too much about it at the moment. We should be more focused on making sure that we don't run any more budget deficits and thus add more money to our national debt. Libertarian Gary Johnson is the only president who's really spoken about being physically conservative and running a balanced budget. Trump has promised mass deportation and building a wall. Hillary's promised free healthcare and tuition. In the words of Kendrick Lamar, bitch, you know this dick ain't free! Dick in this situation being the things that they promised. I'm not saying we shouldn't provide those things, but not at the expense of our future fiscal health, okay? There are 3 ways people propose paying down the budget. 1. Cut spending. Great idea. Less government waste. But that will cut investment to places that could really need it, like education, roads, science, etc. Second idea. Higher taxes. Higher taxes discourage spending and investing by all. The rich people and corporations won't invest and create businesses, and the less well-off won't spend money on anything. Thus, higher taxes place a heavier burden on economic growth. 3. Print more money to pay off the debt. Worst idea ever. As I explained in episode 25 about the Federal Reserve, for the USA to print money, it has to issue government securities, i.e. issue debt. So to print money to pay off debt just creates more debt. As you can see, the answer to the solution is not exactly easy to come up. Bottom line, our current debt levels, our debt to GDP, they're not astronomical and they're not unsafe, but they're red flags popping up, warning of dangers down the road if we continue down this path. Our debt is like a very small bump that you feel and you think, that's probably nothing, and you forget about it. Then down the road, boom, cancer. The worst. We cannot forget about it and just let ourselves keep accruing debt without considering the consequences. We must push our elected officials to be fiscally conservative. You can say, America, the reserve currency of the world, the dollar will always be strong. We can just always print more. You're wrong. That thinking will be the death of us. It is our financial future and our country's financial future that they are messing with. Whether reforming the tax code, cutting unnecessary spending, or whatever, a reasonable budget must be set forth every year, not one of $1 trillion deficit. All empires have fallen after after being unable to pay their debts and spending too much believing that they were invincible. Now, I'm not trying to be all doom and gloom or the end of the world is coming, yada yada yada, but debt in any sense is not to be ignored. This is our generation's responsibility to maintain a stable economy and really think about a responsible budget for ourselves and for our country. That is, if our old parents don't suck it all dry with their hospital bills and shit. Am I right? Am I right? This guy knows what I'm talking about. Joking. Anyways, that's all for this week's episode. You know we'll be here every week with a new episode. For now, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share. Follow me on Twitter. Follow me on Instagram. Like me on Facebook.
Mo Money, signing out.
Alors tu